Hey, what's up, garden friends? Jeff here, Tropical Plant Party. How's everybody doing? You good? I hope you're good. I am great. Though I potentially think I might have a cold. I'm not really sure. Well, here in my Zone 6 garden, we just got done going through a very cold spell. It was 33 one night, 30 another, 27 one night, and then it's been about 30 degrees for the past 2 nights. And I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity to go ahead and talk about microclimates. Or maybe more so, look at microclimates. Because this is one of the few times of year you can actually see your microclimates. Now, I guess first I should talk about what is a microclimate, if you don't already know that is. Now, a microclimate is basically, well, what it sounds like. It's a small area that has its own climate going on. Generally, warm patches in a given area. In this example, it's the garden. Basically, in any given area, there are going to be some spots that are colder and some spots that are warmer. And we can see, after frost has occurred, where those spots are. And it can actually be kind of tricky because when evaluating your microclimate, you really need to start in the fall and winter planning ahead for your next growing season. And once it gets cold, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to just kind of not be all that interested in looking at my garden when it's all sad and dead. I'll keep up with it, but I'm generally more just focused on keeping my houseplants alive and kind of thinking about what I'm going to plant the next year. And when you're thinking about what you're going to plant, well, that's when you need to be watching out for these things. So watch where your frost is affecting things first. And in winter, if you have snow, that's actually very helpful because where your snow melts first is a nice warm microclimate. And there are a lot of variables that go into play there. Particularly, where does cold air move and how does it move? I'm on the middle of a hill, so there's a hill up here, I'm in the middle, and then across the street there's another hill. So the cold air is going to move from up this hill, and it comes down, moves through, goes down the driveway and the neighbors' yards, and keeps going back down that hill. So I have to be aware of spots where cold air can settle. Potentially cold air can settle in grooves and divots, like there's a small trench back here between the house and the garden. But I don't worry about that, and that's because between the house and the garden is another microclimate that's a reflective zone. Sun can hit the wall, and then it can hit the garden, and it warms that spot up. But if this were just like a grassy area with some low-lying spots in it, those low-lying spots would be where the cold air is going to collect. In your corners, these are microclimates. This is the spot where my garage meets my kitchen. Everything here is pretty much untouched by the 27-degree cold. Things that should be dead from it. This calathea right here, that should not be doing well. And we have other things around here. The bromeliads look just fine. The cordylans and drexanias, no damage. Crepe myrtle has a little bit of damage. Chinese fan palm, looking just fine. This is from, I'm going to say, 6 days below freezing. And that's because there's a microclimate here. It's got a nice warm spot. Now over here is an exposed area. This berm with all the bananas on it, they didn't do very well. And they never do once the frost hits. You can see the damage on these guys is, they're pretty much done. It's going to warm up for the next couple weeks. I don't know if it's going to warm up enough for them to put up a significant amount of new foliage, but you can see these are very damaged, especially when compared to these. Now, these, yeah, they're not looking great either, but they're up against the house. There's warm pavement here. They're closer to the nice warm body of water. That water is still very cold. It's not heated. I mean, I have a heater. I never use it, but the water is still warmer than the air. And you can see that it does actually have some foliage in it. That's okay. And the foliage that's okay is the foliage that is closer to the ground and closer to the house. Microclimate. And this is also the southern side of my house. More sun hits here. The south side of your home is generally going to be a warmer area as well. Look at these elephant ears. They look pretty bad, don't they? But right down here by the pavement, the little babies that should be more sensitive to the cold are doing great. And that's because they're right next to the pavement. It's really warm right here. And then again, here's some more bananas that look terrible. So I know from looking at this clump of bananas compared to this clump of bananas But this spot right here is colder. This area in the garden, not as warm, which makes sense. This is exposed. The garden comes around here, sticks out, and basically air moves through here a lot. There's not as much protection. Whereas these bananas have this part of the house that can reflect more. This is also next to the driveway. There's just a lot of nice things playing for them to keep them going and doing okay. Over here, I have a ginger. This is a Scarlet Fire, and behind it a Tropicana. And these should have about the same hardiness to the foliage. Canna's a little bit more hardy, but you can see the canna held up much better, and the foliage that's near the house and near the ground looking much better than that of the ginger. And here we have some hibiscus. Honestly, I am very surprised with how well these guys are doing after as cold as it was, but you can see the hibiscus closest to the wall look much better than the one that's more exposed. Walls provide protection. So really, the gist of everything here is after you've had some frost, you can go out in your garden, you can see where plants are more damaged than others. Many years ago, I had impatiens planted all the way through here, the entire front of this garden, and I did that. I mean, they were absolutely everywhere, so that when we had the frost, I could see which ones did better after that first frost, and that would let me know where kind of a warmer zone's going to be. It makes it a lot easier if you don't have enough of the same plant repeating through to be able to say which one's more hardy over another one. But for me, I know up against the house, warmer. Back here in this corner, much warmer than over there in that corner where the banana is that we were just talking about. That's a really warm zone. It's a spot where there's cement and concrete and a house. There's all kinds of factors going along with it to take good care of them, keep them nice and toasty. So, bodies of water, south, southwest facing walls, and no low-lying spots. These are going to be your warmer areas to keep your plants. And we can also create our own microclimates. I had somebody comment and ask about the eucalyptus that I have here, the pineapple lily, and how it was in bloom so early for me in my Zone 6 garden. Now, my theory as to why it generally blooms so much earlier is because it gets an earlier start. It gets an early start because it has the warm pavement, which heats up hot in the sun, helping to warm the soil. And in addition to this being a warm spot in my garden, it gets even warmer because these bananas back here, I cut and I put a cage around them. I fill the cage with leaves, and then that creates a microclimate. It creates a warm zone right behind them. So they're in between the concrete and then this big wall of leaves right behind them. It's a little heat generating area. So I think that my pineapple lilies get going a little bit earlier than they probably would in Zone 6 because they get that extra bump. The mulch behind them basically acts kind of like a compost, really. It holds in heat and provides a little bit of a barrier for them. It helps out. So if you don't think you have a good microclimate, lots of mulch, piles and piles and piles of mulch can help. Some people will just just pile the bags up, don't even open them around the plants because it creates an easy wall to keep the wind out. You could also just, build something out of 2x4s if you needed to. But that would also be an effective way to kind of create your own little microclimate. You can also put in small ponds, small bodies of water, as long as they're not going to freeze over and you're not going to have damage to them. And there are ways to stop them from freezing. They have little devices you can place inside them. The little devices keep a hole open in the water so they don't freeze solid and break whatever frame you're using to hold your water in. But bodies of water also help keep things warm. It needs to be kind of deep. I don't think a 8-inch deep little puddle here would do very much, but if it were a couple feet wide and maybe a foot or two deep, that would help a little bit with the plants that are very, very close to it. But this right here is probably the best microclimate I have in my entire garden. It's a very warm spot. Unfortunately, planting things here is very tricky because it's very dark and shady during the mostly summer and fall. And during the winter, all of the leaves fall off the tree, and it's just blazing sun cooking things in between here. But this is a good example of a microclimate. All of these plants, except for maybe the Chinese fan palm and the cordyceps in the back, really should look pretty junky right now after 6 days below freezing. But they're okay. They're in the corner. It's a reflective spot near pavement. The pavement's near a body of water. And they have these lava stones in them too. Rocks are another way to help create a microclimate. You can put large rocks around things and they will help soak in the heat during the day from the sun and re-release it at nighttime. So say you wanted to plant one of these eucalyptus, a pineapple lily, in your zone 5 garden, or even zone 6. They're not really supposed to be hardy in zone 6, but they've always done fine for me with really no protection. And they're protected from the other things I do, but I don't go to extra lengths to protect them. Does that make sense? So say you planted something like that, or a crinum lily, something that isn't really meant for your zone, maybe you're just a zone below it. You could go ahead and put some lava stones around that area and pile mulch over that area, and you're going to create a really nice warm spot for them during the winter and really give them a better chance at survival. Alright, and that's going to do it for today. I have an awful lot to tend to in the garden, if you can't tell. So, got to wrap things up. It's just a nice little quick chat about microclimates and looking at them and how you can create them and evaluating your warm zones in your garden. Leaves are also pretty effective. There's some of my Vandas hiding out under there right now, and they're doing okay. That's an experiment. I don't recommend anybody do that. So I hope everybody's doing well and having a wonderful day. Today's actually Halloween. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment down below. All of these things really help me, and I really do enjoy talking to everybody. Let me know your microclimates. You had things growing in your garden that really shouldn't be able to grow there, why you think they're able to grow there. That's a fun thing to talk about. I love nerding out with my plant friends. Okay, and as always, everybody, keep on growing. Bye-bye.